Shadow Work by Carl Jung, written and published by Ngasline. The shadow self represents one of the most profound and misunderstood aspects of our psychological makeup. It contains all the parts of ourselves that we have hidden, repressed, or denied, the aspects we'd rather not acknowledge. When Carl Jung first introduced this concept, he described it as the unknown dark side of our personality, not inherently negative, but simply unexplored. Our shadow begins forming in early childhood as we learn what behaviors are acceptable in our family and society. When we receive messages that certain emotions, traits, or desires are unacceptable, we naturally push them into our unconscious mind. A child who is consistently told that anger is bad will learn to suppress their angry feelings, pushing them into the shadow. Someone raised in an environment where vulnerability was seen as weakness might lock away their tender emotions. The shadow contains not only our darker impulses, but also positive qualities we've learned to deny. A person might suppress their creative talents if they were raised to believe that practical careers are the only valid path. Similarly, someone might hide their natural leadership abilities if they were taught to always defer to others. These golden aspects of the shadow represent untapped potential rather than darkness. Common shadow traits often manifest as what we most strongly reject or react to in others. When we find ourselves having an intense, seemingly disproportionate reaction to someone else's behavior, it often points to our own shadow material. The qualities that trigger us most in others are frequently the very things we've disowned in ourselves. This explains why someone might feel intense anger towards selfish people while denying their own needs, or why they might harshly judge emotional people while suppressing their own feelings. The development of our shadow is a natural and necessary part of human development. As we grow and learn to function in society, we all make unconscious decisions about which parts of ourselves to express and which to hide. This process helps us fit in and succeed in our early environment, but problems arise when we become too rigid in our self-conception and completely lose access to these hidden aspects. Our shadow forms through various mechanisms, including direct suppression, being told certain behaviors are wrong, modeling, observing what brings approval, and traumatic experiences that teach us to hide certain parts of ourselves. Cultural and societal influences also play a significant role as we internalize messages about what constitutes acceptable behavior for our gender, social class, or cultural background. Understanding the shadow requires acknowledging that we all contain multitudes, that every human being has the capacity for the full range of human experiences and emotions. This doesn't mean that our shadow aspects are meant to be acted out unconsciously, but rather that they need to be recognized, understood, and integrated consciously. When we begin to accept our complete nature, including the parts we've tried to hide, we move towards psychological wholeness. The shadow isn't something to be eliminated, but rather understood and integrated. It holds valuable energy and potential that, when properly acknowledged and channeled, can lead to greater creativity, authenticity, and personal power. By getting to know our shadow, we begin the journey toward becoming more complete and integrated human beings, capable of accessing the full range of our human potential while maintaining conscious choice about how we express it. The process of getting to know the shadow requires courage, honesty, and compassion for ourselves. It involves looking at the parts of ourselves we've tried to ignore, understanding why they were pushed into the shadow, and gradually bringing them into consciousness where they can be transformed and integrated into our whole self. Why overlooking your shadow hinders success? The shadow aspects of our personality don't simply disappear when we choose to ignore them. They become more powerful and influential in ways we may not consciously recognize. When we overlook our shadow self, we essentially lock away parts of who we are, creating an internal prison that limits our potential and undermines our success across all areas of life. This suppression of our shadow manifests in numerous ways that can sabotage our progress. We might find ourselves repeatedly encountering the same obstacles in relationships, career advancement, or personal growth without understanding why. These patterns persist because we haven't acknowledged the shadow aspects driving our behaviors. For instance, someone who denies their own anger may unconsciously create situations that lead to conflict, while remaining unaware of their role in generating these tensions. The professional impact of an unexamined shadow can be particularly costly. A person who hasn't confronted their fear of failure might self-sabotage by procrastinating on important projects or avoiding opportunities for advancement. Similarly, someone who hasn't acknowledged their need for recognition might become resentful and disengaged at work, leading to decreased performance and missed opportunities. These shadow aspects operate beneath our awareness, silently directing our actions and reactions. When we suppress our shadow, we expend enormous amounts of energy maintaining the illusion of our idealized self-image. This energy could otherwise be channeled into creativity, productivity, and authentic self-expression. The constant effort required to keep our shadow hidden depletes our psychological resources, leaving us feeling exhausted and disconnected from our true potential. The signs of shadow suppression are often subtle but pervasive. We might notice ourselves being triggered by certain personalities or situations without understanding why. These triggers are actually mirrors reflecting our unacknowledged shadow aspects back to us. We might also experience unexplained anxiety, depression, or a persistent sense of emptiness, all potential indicators that we're cut off from important parts of ourselves. Our relationships suffer significantly when we overlook our shadow. Without acknowledging our complete selves, we cannot form genuine connections with others. We might project our disowned qualities onto those around us, creating discord and misunderstanding. This projection can lead to a pattern of failed relationships or surface-level connections that never develop into meaningful bonds. The cost of ignoring our shadow extends to our physical well-being as well. The stress of maintaining a fragmented self can manifest in physical symptoms from chronic tension to immune system suppression. Our bodies often express what our conscious minds refuse to acknowledge, creating a physical toll that compounds over time. Growth and personal development become stunted when we refuse to engage with our shadow. True transformation requires us to work with all aspects of ourselves, not just the parts we find acceptable. When we overlook our shadow, we create an artificial ceiling on our potential, limiting our ability to evolve and achieve our goals. The path to success requires integration rather than suppression. By acknowledging and working with our shadow aspects, we free up the energy previously used for denial and resistance. This liberated energy becomes available for creative expression, authentic connection, and meaningful achievement. Our shadow contains not only our perceived negative qualities, but also our untapped potential and hidden strengths. The journey of shadow work, while challenging, offers the opportunity to reclaim our full power and authenticity. By facing what we've overlooked, we can transform these aspects from hindrances into assets, creating a foundation for lasting success and fulfillment. The very qualities we've tried to suppress often hold the keys to our greatest achievements, waiting to be acknowledged and integrated into our conscious experience. Confronting your biggest fears and doubts. Fear and doubt are fundamental aspects of the human experience, yet they often become the primary building blocks of our shadow self. When we face our deepest fears and doubts head-on, we begin to understand how they have shaped our personality and influenced our choices throughout life. These fears often originate in childhood experiences or significant life events that left lasting impressions on our psyche. Our defense mechanisms develop as protective shields against these fears and doubts. We might adopt personas of perfectionism, people, pleasing, or aggressive behavior to mask our underlying vulnerabilities. These mechanisms, while initially serving as survival strategies, often become rigid patterns that prevent us from experiencing authentic connections and personal growth. Understanding these defense mechanisms is crucial because they reveal the nature of our shadow aspects and how we've learned to cope with emotional pain. Anxiety plays a pivotal role in shadow formation, acting as both a warning system and a manifestation of our unacknowledged fears. When we experience anxiety, it's often our shadow self attempting to communicate important messages about our authentic needs and desires. This anxiety can manifest physically through symptoms like rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, or digestive issues, serving as bodily signals that we're disconnecting from our true selves. To effectively confront our fears and doubts, we must first create a safe internal environment for exploration. This involves developing a practice of self-observation without judgment. Begin by identifying one fear that consistently appears in your life, perhaps the fear of rejection, failure, or abandonment. Sit with this fear, allowing yourself to feel its presence in your body without trying to change or eliminate it. The technique of active imagination, developed by Jung himself, can be particularly effective in this process. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed, close your eyes, and allow your mind to create a visual representation of your fear. Engage in a dialogue with this representation, asking questions about its origin and purpose in your life. This process helps transform abstract fears into tangible elements that can be examined and understood. Another powerful technique for facing fears is gradual exposure combined with self-compassion. Rather than attempting to confront all fears simultaneously, choose one aspect to work with at a time. For instance, if you fear public speaking, start by practicing in front of a mirror, then progress to speaking in front of trusted friends, and gradually work your way up to larger groups. Throughout this process, maintain an attitude of gentle curiosity rather than harsh self-criticism. Working with doubt requires a similar approach, but with an additional focus on identifying the source of self-limiting beliefs. Often, our doubts are internalized voices from authority figures in our past or societal expectations that we've absorbed unconsciously. By examining these doubts closely, we can begin to distinguish between legitimate concerns and inherited beliefs that no longer serve our growth. The process of confronting fears and doubts inevitably brings up resistance. This resistance itself contains valuable information about our shadow aspects. Pay attention to when you feel the urge to avoid, distract, or deny certain emotions or thoughts. These moments of resistance often point directly to the areas of your shadow that need the most attention and healing. Through consistent practice of these techniques, we begin to develop a new relationship with our fears and doubts. Instead of seeing them as enemies to be vanquished, we learn to view them as messengers carrying important information about our needs, boundaries, and authentic desires. This shift in perspective allows us to integrate these aspects of our shadow self more fully, leading to greater psychological wholeness and emotional freedom. Finding triggers to help you heal. Our emotional triggers serve as valuable guideposts on the journey of shadow work, illuminating the parts of ourselves that need attention and healing. These triggers are moments when we experience intense emotional reactions that seem disproportionate to the actual situation. They often point directly to unresolved wounds, repressed emotions, or aspects of ourselves we've pushed into the shadow. Understanding our triggers requires a willingness to observe ourselves with genuine curiosity and compassion. When someone's comment or action provokes an unexpectedly strong reaction in us, it's rarely about the present moment alone. Instead, these triggers typically connect to deeper patterns, past experiences, or unacknowledged parts of ourselves. For example, a simple criticism at work might trigger an overwhelming sense of inadequacy, revealing a shadow aspect related to self-worth and childhood experiences. Creating a trigger journal becomes an essential tool in this exploration. By documenting our emotional reactions, we begin to notice patterns and connections that might otherwise remain hidden. Include not just the triggering event, but also the physical sensations, emotions, thoughts, and memories that arise. This detailed observation helps create a map of our internal landscape, showing us where our shadow aspects reside. The body often responds to triggers before our conscious mind catches up. Physical reactions might include a racing heart, tight chest, clenched jaw, or sudden fatigue. These bodily responses provide valuable information about our triggers and can help us identify them more quickly. Learning to recognize these physical cues allows us to pause and engage with our triggers consciously rather than reacting automatically. Our triggers often reveal our most deeply held beliefs about ourselves and the world. When we feel triggered by someone's success, we might discover shadow aspects related to our own ambition or feelings of inadequacy. When we react strongly to someone's vulnerability, it might point to our own unexpressed emotional needs. Each trigger offers an opportunity to explore these hidden aspects of ourselves. Working with triggers requires patience and self-compassion. It's natural to want to avoid or suppress these uncomfortable experiences, but healing comes from turning toward them with curiosity. Rather than judging ourselves for being triggered, we can view these moments as opportunities for growth and self-understanding. Each trigger represents a doorway to deeper self-awareness and potential healing. The process of mapping our reactions helps us understand the geography of our inner world. Notice what situations consistently provoke strong responses. Pay attention to relationships that frequently trigger emotional reactions. Look for themes in the type of comments or behaviors that affect you most deeply. This mapping process reveals the structure of our shadow and guides our healing journey. Using triggers as guidance means learning to stay present with uncomfortable emotions long enough to understand their message. Instead of immediately trying to fix or change our reactions, we can practice sitting with them, allowing them to reveal their deeper meaning. This approach transforms triggers from sources of distress into valuable teachers on our path to wholeness. The healing process involves gradually building our capacity to stay present with triggering situations. As we develop this ability, we can begin to respond rather than react. This doesn't mean we'll never feel triggered, but rather that we'll have more choice in how we handle these moments. Through consistent practice and self-observation, triggers become less overwhelming and more manageable. Over time, working with our triggers leads to greater emotional freedom and self-understanding. Each trigger we explore and integrate reduces the power of our shadow aspects to control our behavior unconsciously. This process of conscious engagement with our triggers gradually transforms them from sources of pain into opportunities for growth and healing. Identifying patterns that hold you back. We all have patterns in our lives that seem to repeat endlessly, often leading to the same unsatisfying results. These patterns are deeply rooted in our shadow aspects, and understanding them is crucial for personal growth and transformation. As we move through life, we unconsciously create behaviors and thought patterns that served us at one point, but may now be holding us back from reaching our full potential. These self-sabotaging behaviors often manifest in various ways. You might find yourself repeatedly choosing partners who aren't emotionally available, or consistently procrastinating on important projects until the last minute. Perhaps you notice that you tend to withdraw from relationships just as they start becoming intimate, or you habitually downplay your achievements when receiving recognition. These patterns aren't random. They're protective mechanisms that emerged from past experiences and beliefs about ourselves and the world. The first step in identifying these patterns is to observe your life with genuine curiosity and without judgment. Look at your relationships, career choices, and daily decisions. Do you often find yourself in similar situations despite different circumstances? Are there common themes in your struggles? These recurring patterns are like breadcrumbs leading back to your shadow self. One powerful way to recognize these patterns is to examine your emotional reactions. When you feel triggered or experience an intense emotional response that seems disproportionate to the situation, it's often because you're encountering a pattern connected to your shadow. For instance, if you become intensely angry when someone questions your decisions, this might reveal a pattern of defending against perceived criticism that stems from childhood experiences. Your relationship with money, success, and self-worth often reveals deeply ingrained patterns. Do you tend to sabotage opportunities for advancement? Do you spend money recklessly when you're feeling emotional? These behaviors might indicate patterns of unworthiness or fear of success that reside in your shadow. Breaking these patterns requires conscious awareness and consistent effort. Once you've identified a pattern, you can begin to interrupt it by making different choices. This doesn't mean the urge to follow the old pattern will immediately disappear. Rather, you're creating space between the trigger and your response. This space allows you to choose a new way of being, Pattern interruption techniques can be particularly effective. When you notice yourself falling into a familiar pattern, pause and take a deep breath. Ask yourself what you're feeling in that moment and what need you're trying to meet through this behavior. This simple act of becoming conscious can break the automatic nature of the pattern. Remember that these patterns developed for a reason. They were once adaptive strategies that helped you cope with difficult situations or emotions. Approaching them with understanding rather than criticism allows you to honor their protective intent while recognizing that you've outgrown their usefulness. Working with a therapist or counselor can provide valuable support in identifying and transforming these patterns. They can help you see blind spots and offer tools for creating new, healthier ways of responding to life's challenges. However, much of the work can also be done through self-reflection and conscious awareness in daily life. As you continue to identify and work with these patterns, you'll likely discover they're interconnected. One pattern might influence multiple areas of your life, and addressing it can create positive changes across various situations. This interconnected nature of patterns makes shadow work both challenging and rewarding. As you heal one aspect, you often find others naturally shifting as well. The goal isn't to eliminate all patterns. Some patterns serve us well and contribute to our success and well-being. The aim is to identify and transform those patterns that limit our growth and prevent us from living authentically. Through this process, we create space for new, life-affirming patterns that support our journey toward becoming our true selves. Writing in a journal to discover your thoughts. Journaling serves as one of the most powerful tools in shadow work, offering a safe and private space to explore the depths of your psyche. The act of putting thoughts onto paper creates a tangible connection between your conscious mind and the hidden aspects of yourself that often go unnoticed in daily life. Through regular journaling practice, you begin to notice patterns, triggers, and emotions that might otherwise remain buried beneath the surface of awareness. The process of shadow work journaling differs from ordinary diary keeping. While traditional journaling often focuses on recording daily events and surface-level emotions, shadow work journaling delves deeper into the unconscious mind, examining the parts of yourself that you may find uncomfortable or challenging to face. This practice requires radical honesty with yourself and a willingness to explore uncomfortable truths without judgment. When beginning your shadow work journal, choose a notebook that feels special or significant to you. This physical object becomes a sacred container for your inner work. Find a quiet, private space where you can write without interruption, allowing your thoughts to flow freely onto the paper. The key is to write without censoring yourself. Let your thoughts and emotions emerge naturally, even if they seem dark, inappropriate, or contrary to your usual self-image. Effective shadow work journaling often begins with prompts that encourage deep self-reflection. Consider questions like, what parts of myself do I hide from others? Or when do I feel most triggered, and what does that reveal about my shadow? These prompts serve as doorways into your unconscious mind, helping you access thoughts and feelings that might otherwise remain hidden. Write about your dreams, as they often contain symbolic representations of your shadow aspects. Pay particular attention to strong emotional reactions in your daily life. When something or someone triggers an intense response, use your journal to explore the root of these feelings. Often, what bothers us most in others reflects disowned aspects of ourselves. Document these moments with complete honesty, examining your role in conflicts and your defensive reactions. This process helps identify projection, the unconscious tendency to attribute our own unwanted qualities to others. As you develop your journaling practice, you might notice resistance arising. This resistance often signals that you're approaching important shadow material. Instead of avoiding these uncomfortable feelings, use them as indicators that you're on the right track. Write about the resistance itself, exploring what makes certain topics or emotions particularly challenging to address. Regular reflection on your journal entries reveals patterns and themes in your shadow material. Review your writings periodically, noting recurring emotions, situations, or relationships that trigger strong reactions. These patterns often point to core shadow aspects that require attention and integration. Look for contradictions between your stated values and your actual behaviors or emotional responses, as these discrepancies often indicate shadow material. The healing power of shadow work journaling lies not just in the writing itself, but in the process of witnessing your own experience without judgment. By acknowledging and accepting all aspects of yourself on paper, you begin to integrate these shadow elements into your conscious awareness. This integration leads to greater self-understanding and authentic self-expression. Through consistent journaling practice, you develop a deeper relationship with yourself and your shadow aspects. The journal becomes a mirror reflecting both your light and dark qualities, helping you recognize that both are essential parts of your wholeness. As you continue this practice, you'll find that previously rejected or feared aspects of yourself become valuable sources of wisdom and strength, contributing to your personal growth and transformation. Shadow work journaling is a process that unfolds gradually over time. Each entry builds upon previous insights, creating a rich tapestry of self-discovery. The simple act of putting pen to paper opens doorways to deeper understanding, allowing you to embrace all aspects of yourself with greater compassion and awareness. Easy meditation for connecting with your shadow. Meditation serves as a powerful gateway to accessing and understanding your shadow self. Through the practice of meditation, you can create a safe space to explore the deeper aspects of your psyche that often remain hidden from conscious awareness. The key to successful shadow work meditation lies in approaching it with openness, curiosity, and a non-judgmental attitude. Beginning your shadow work meditation practice starts with creating the right environment. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed and settle into a comfortable position. You may choose to sit cross-legged on the floor, in a chair with your feet flat on the ground, or even lie down if that feels more natural. The important thing is to maintain a position that allows you to stay alert while remaining relaxed. Start by focusing on your breath, letting it flow naturally without trying to control it. As you breathe, notice the sensation of air moving through your body. This simple awareness helps ground you in the present moment and creates a foundation for deeper exploration. Once you feel centered, begin to visualize a peaceful, safe environment in your mind's eye. This could be a serene garden, a quiet beach, or any place that brings you comfort. From this place of safety, imagine meeting your shadow self. This might appear as a darker version of yourself, a symbolic figure, or simply a presence you can sense. Don't force any particular image. Let it emerge naturally. Notice any feelings, thoughts, or sensations that arise as you acknowledge this aspect of yourself. Some people might experience resistance, fear, or discomfort. These reactions are normal and valuable parts of the process. As you continue your meditation, engage in a dialogue with your shadow. This can be done through silent communication or by speaking softly aloud. Ask your shadow what it wants you to know, what lessons it holds, or what aspects of yourself you've been denying. Listen without judgment to whatever answers emerge. Your shadow contains not only challenging aspects, but also untapped potential and strength. One effective visualization technique involves imagining a bright light surrounding both you and your shadow self. This light represents acceptance and integration, allowing you to embrace all parts of yourself. As the light envelops you both, visualize the boundaries between you and your shadow becoming less distinct, symbolizing the integration of these different aspects of your psyche. Regular practice of shadow work meditation can lead to profound insights and personal transformation. Start with short sessions of 5-10 minutes and gradually increase the duration as you become more comfortable with the practice. Some days, you might encounter strong emotions or resistance. This is part of the process and indicates you're touching important aspects of your unconscious mind. Incorporating mindfulness into your daily life supports your shadow work meditation practice. Throughout the day, notice moments when you feel triggered or experience strong emotional reactions. These instances often point to shadow aspects seeking attention. Use these observations as material for your next meditation session. Shadow work meditation is not about achieving a particular state or forcing specific outcomes. It's about creating space for self-discovery and acceptance. Some sessions might feel profound and insightful, while others might seem uneventful. Each experience contributes to your overall growth and understanding. The practice of shadow work meditation becomes more powerful when combined with other shadow work techniques like journaling or artistic expression. After each meditation session, consider spending a few minutes recording your experiences, insights, or questions that arose. This documentation helps track your progress and provides material for deeper exploration in future sessions. Through consistent practice of shadow work meditation, you'll develop a stronger relationship with your complete self, leading to greater self-awareness, emotional balance, and personal authenticity. This journey of inner exploration opens the door to profound healing and transformation, allowing you to embrace all aspects of who you are. Ways to let go of guilt, shame, and resentment. The journey of shadow work inevitably brings us face to face with some of our most challenging emotions: guilt, shame, and resentment. These powerful feelings often lie at the core of our shadow aspects, acting as invisible chains that keep us bound to past hurts and limiting beliefs. Understanding and releasing these emotions is crucial for psychological healing and personal growth. Guilt emerges when we believe we've violated our own moral code or failed to meet our personal standards. It can serve as a useful guide for moral behavior, but excessive guilt becomes toxic, preventing us from moving forward in life. The first step in releasing guilt is to acknowledge that making mistakes is an inherent part of human experience. We must recognize that past actions were made with the consciousness and capabilities we had at that time, not with the wisdom we possess today. Working with guilt requires us to examine our personal value system and distinguish between authentic guilt, which signals a genuine transgression of our values, and neurotic guilt, which stems from unrealistic expectations or internalized criticism from others. Through this examination, we can begin to separate legitimate remorse that guides positive change from self-punishing patterns that keep us stuck. Shame differs from guilt in that it attacks our very sense of self. While guilt says I did something bad, shame whispers I am bad. This toxic emotion often develops in childhood and becomes deeply embedded in our shadow. Releasing shame involves recognizing that our inherent worth as human beings remains constant, regardless of our actions or others' opinions. The practice of self-acceptance becomes essential here, as does challenging the often unrealistic standards we've internalized. To work with shame, we must bring it into the light of consciousness. This means acknowledging shameful feelings without judgment and understanding their origins. Often, shame is connected to experiences where we felt rejected, humiliated, or deemed unworthy. By examining these experiences with adult awareness, we can begin to see how many of our shame-based beliefs are based on distorted perceptions or others' projections. Resentment, the third toxic emotion we must address, often feels like a protective shield, but actually works as a poison, affecting us more than those toward whom we hold it. Resentment typically stems from perceived injustices or unmet expectations, and while these feelings may be justified, holding on to them creates ongoing suffering in our lives. The process of releasing resentment begins with acknowledging the pain that lies beneath it. One powerful technique for releasing these emotions involves emotional freedom practices, such as EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping. These methods combine physical stimulation of specific points on the body with psychological acceptance, helping to release stuck emotions at both physical and mental levels. Regular practice of these techniques can gradually diminish the intensity of guilt, shame, and resentment. Building new perspectives is another crucial aspect of this work. This involves consciously choosing to view past experiences through a lens of learning and growth rather than self-condemnation. We can ask ourselves what these experiences taught us, how they've contributed to our current wisdom, and how we might use them to help others facing similar challenges. The practice of radical acceptance plays a vital role in this process. This means fully acknowledging what is without resistance or judgment. When we accept our past actions, our perceived flaws, and our human imperfections, we create space for genuine transformation. This doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or denying responsibility. Rather, it means accepting reality as it is so we can respond from a place of clarity rather than reaction. Through consistent practice of these approaches, we gradually loosen the grip of guilt, shame, and resentment. As these toxic emotions begin to dissolve, we often discover unexpected gifts: increased compassion for ourselves and others, greater emotional freedom, and a deeper sense of peace. This release creates space for more life-affirming emotions and experiences, allowing us to move forward with greater authenticity and joy. Forgiveness as a tool for healing shadows. Forgiveness stands as one of the most powerful tools in shadow work, serving as a bridge between our wounded past and integrated future. The practice of forgiveness operates on multiple levels, addressing both the harm we've experienced from others and the pain we've inflicted upon ourselves. This transformative process begins with acknowledging that holding on to resentment and anger creates a prison that keeps our shadow aspects locked in place. The journey of self-forgiveness requires us to first recognize that many of our perceived failures and mistakes were actually attempts to protect ourselves or meet unfulfilled needs. When we judge ourselves harshly for past actions, we perpetuate the cycle of shame that feeds our shadow. By understanding that we did the best we could with the awareness and resources available to us at the time, we create space for genuine self-forgiveness to emerge. Working with self-forgiveness involves developing a dialogue with the parts of ourselves we've rejected or condemned. This might include the inner child who felt abandoned, the teenager who acted out in pain, or the adult who made choices from a place of fear rather than authenticity. Each of these aspects carries wounds that need acknowledgement and compassion before true forgiveness can occur. Forgiving others represents another crucial dimension of shadow healing. When we hold on to grievances against those who have hurt us, we unknowingly give them continued power over our emotional well-being. The process of forgiving others doesn't mean condoning their actions or maintaining toxic relationships. Instead, it involves releasing the emotional charge associated with past hurts and freeing ourselves from the burden of carrying that pain. Integration exercises play a vital role in the forgiveness process. One powerful practice involves writing letters to those who have hurt us, including ourselves, without necessarily sending them. These letters provide a safe container for expressing unspoken feelings and releasing pent-up emotions. Another effective technique involves creating forgiveness rituals, such as burning symbolic representations of past hurts or performing acts of self-care that symbolize making peace with specific aspects of our history. Moving beyond past hurts requires us to understand that forgiveness is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. As we encounter new triggers or uncover deeper layers of our shadow, we may need to revisit the forgiveness process repeatedly. Each iteration brings us closer to genuine acceptance and integration of our whole self. The practice of forgiveness also helps us recognize the universal nature of human suffering and imperfection. When we acknowledge that everyone carries their own shadows and wounds, it becomes easier to extend compassion to both ourselves and others. This understanding creates a foundation for genuine empathy and connection, even with those who have caused us pain. Through consistent forgiveness work, we begin to notice subtle shifts in our relationship with our shadow aspects. The parts of ourselves we once rejected or feared gradually become sources of wisdom and strength. This transformation occurs as we release the judgment and criticism that kept these aspects in shadow, allowing them to be integrated into our conscious awareness. Forgiveness ultimately serves as a catalyst for profound personal transformation. As we release the energy bound up in old hurts and resentments, we free up psychological resources for growth and creativity. This liberation allows us to move forward with greater authenticity and wholeness, no longer constrained by the weight of unresolved past experiences. The journey of forgiveness in shadow work leads us toward a more integrated and peaceful relationship with ourselves and others. By consistently practicing forgiveness, we create the conditions for our shadow aspects to emerge into the light of consciousness, where they can be transformed from sources of pain into wellsprings of personal power and wisdom. Understanding self-compassion in shadow work. Self-compassion stands as a crucial element in the journey of shadow work, serving as both a foundation and guiding light through the challenging process of self-discovery. As we delve deeper into our shadow aspects, we often encounter parts of ourselves that we've long rejected or denied, making self-compassion not just helpful, but essential for genuine transformation. The practice of self-compassion begins with acknowledging that everyone carries shadows and struggles with their inner darkness. This universal human experience connects us all, yet we often treat ourselves with harsh judgment when confronting our own shadows. Learning to approach these difficult aspects of ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a dear friend becomes transformative in shadow work. Self-compassion manifests in 3 key ways during shadow work. First, it creates a safe space for exploration, allowing us to look at our shadows without the fear of self-condemnation. When we approach our darker aspects with gentleness, we're more likely to stay present with uncomfortable truths rather than turning away from them. Second, self-compassion helps us maintain perspective, reminding us that our shadows don't define our entire being, but are simply parts of our whole self that need attention and integration. Third, it provides emotional resilience, helping us bounce back from the challenging moments that inevitably arise during shadow work. Developing self-compassion requires consistent practice and patience. It begins with catching ourselves in moments of self-criticism and consciously choosing a more supportive inner dialogue. This might involve acknowledging our pain without trying to fix or change it immediately. For instance, when we discover a shadow aspect that makes us uncomfortable instead of berating ourselves, we can say, "This is a difficult moment, and it's natural to feel challenged by this discovery." The relationship between self-compassion and emotional resilience is particularly significant in shadow work. As we build our capacity for self-kindness, we simultaneously strengthen our ability to face and work with increasingly challenging shadow material. This emotional resilience acts as a buffer, allowing us to explore deeper aspects of our shadow without becoming overwhelmed or discouraged. Incorporating daily self-compassion exercises into shadow work practice can take many forms. One powerful approach is to start each day with a brief self-compassion meditation, acknowledging both our light and shadow aspects with equal acceptance. Throughout the day, we can pause during moments of difficulty to offer ourselves words of kindness and understanding. When shadow material surfaces, we can practice holding space for our experiences without judgment, treating ourselves with the same care we would offer a child learning something new. Self-compassion also helps us navigate the natural resistance that often arises during shadow work. When we encounter parts of ourselves that we've long denied or rejected, our initial reaction might be to push them away again. Self-compassion allows us to stay present with these uncomfortable aspects, understanding that our resistance is a natural part of the process rather than a failure or shortcoming. The practice of self-compassion in shadow work extends beyond mere self-acceptance to active self-support. This means actively choosing to be on our own side as we navigate the challenges of integration. It involves celebrating our progress, no matter how small, and maintaining faith in our capacity for growth and transformation. Through this lens, even our struggles become opportunities for deeper self-understanding and compassion. As we continue our shadow work journey, self-compassion becomes both the container that holds our experiences and the balm that soothes our wounds. It transforms the often challenging process of shadow integration from a battle into a journey of self-discovery and healing, allowing us to embrace all aspects of ourselves with understanding and love. This comprehensive approach to self-compassion creates a sustainable foundation for long-term shadow work, enabling us to maintain our practice even through the most challenging periods of transformation. How shadow work helps relationships. Shadow work profoundly impacts our relationships with others, as our unacknowledged aspects often manifest in our interactions with loved ones, friends, and colleagues. When we begin to integrate our shadow elements, we naturally develop deeper, more authentic connections with those around us. This transformation occurs because we become more honest with ourselves and, consequently, more genuine in our relationships with others. Our shadow aspects frequently surface in our closest relationships, where we feel safe enough to let our guards down. The people closest to us often trigger our deepest wounds and unresolved issues, making these relationships perfect mirrors for our inner work. By acknowledging and working with these triggers, we can transform our relationships from sources of conflict into opportunities for growth and healing. Communication patterns significantly improve through shadow work. As we become more aware of our projected fears, insecurities, and unmet needs, we can communicate more clearly and honestly with others. Instead of reacting from our wounded places, we learn to respond from a place of understanding and awareness. This shift allows for more meaningful conversations and deeper emotional intimacy with our partners, family members, and friends. Shadow work helps us recognize how we unconsciously sabotage our relationships. Many people unknowingly push others away or create conflicts due to unresolved shadow aspects. For example, someone with abandonment issues might test their partner's loyalty through manipulative behaviors, or someone with unworthiness issues might consistently choose unavailable partners. By bringing these patterns into consciousness through shadow work, we can break free from destructive relationship cycles. The practice of shadow work also enhances our capacity for empathy and understanding. As we accept our own hidden aspects, we become more accepting of others' imperfections and struggles. This acceptance creates space for authentic connections where both parties can be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. We begin to see others not as projections of our own unresolved issues, but as complete individuals with their own journey of growth. Relationship healing practices become more effective when combined with shadow work. As we understand our own psychological makeup better, we can identify what truly triggers us in relationships and take responsibility for our reactions. This self-awareness allows us to separate our past wounds from present situations, preventing us from unfairly projecting our unresolved issues onto current relationships. Shadow work also helps us establish healthier boundaries in relationships. When we understand and accept our own needs and limitations, we become better at communicating them to others. This clarity prevents resentment from building up and allows for more authentic interactions. We learn to say no when necessary and yes when we genuinely want to, rather than acting from obligation or fear. The integration of shadow aspects leads to more fulfilling romantic relationships. Many people attract partners who mirror their unacknowledged shadow elements. By doing shadow work, we become more conscious of these patterns and can make more informed choices in our romantic lives. This awareness helps us move beyond the initial attraction phase and build relationships based on genuine connection rather than unconscious psychological needs. Professional relationships also benefit from shadow work. As we become more integrated individuals, we bring this wholeness into our workplace interactions. We become better leaders, more supportive colleagues, and more effective team members. Our increased self-awareness helps us navigate office politics with greater wisdom and handle conflicts more constructively. Through shadow work, we learn that all relationships serve as mirrors for our inner growth. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and continue our journey of integration. As we embrace both our light and shadow aspects, we create space for others to do the same, fostering relationships built on authenticity, understanding, and mutual growth. Bringing together your shadow for wholeness. The journey of shadow work culminates in the profound process of integration, where we learn to embrace both our light and dark aspects to achieve genuine wholeness. This integration isn't about eliminating our shadow aspects, but rather about acknowledging them as essential parts of our complete self. When we bring together our shadow elements with our conscious personality, we create a more authentic and balanced version of ourselves. Integration begins with acceptance of all that we are, including those parts we've previously rejected or denied. This means developing a relationship with our shadow aspects rather than trying to overcome or defeat them. Consider your shadow as a long-lost friend who, despite having difficult qualities, still holds valuable wisdom and strength. By viewing your shadow this way, you create space for dialogue and understanding rather than conflict and resistance. Balance practices play a crucial role in shadow integration. These involve consciously working with opposing forces within yourself. Your desire for control versus your need to let go, your drive for achievement versus your need for rest, your social nature versus your need for solitude. Rather than seeing these as contradictions that need to be resolved, view them as complementary forces that create a fuller, more dynamic personality. Creating harmony between your conscious and shadow aspects requires regular practice and patience. One effective approach is to establish daily rituals that acknowledge both sides of your nature. This might involve setting aside time each day to express both your creative and analytical sides, or finding ways to honor both your need for structure and your spontaneous impulses. These practices help build bridges between different aspects of your personality, allowing them to work together rather than against each other. The process of maintaining progress in shadow integration is ongoing and cyclical. As you grow and evolve, new shadow aspects may emerge, requiring continued attention and integration work. This isn't a sign of failure, but rather an indication of deeper personal growth and expanding self-awareness. Each cycle of integration brings you closer to wholeness and authenticity. Physical practices can also support shadow integration. Movement practices like dance or yoga can help express and integrate different aspects of yourself through bodily awareness. Art making, whether through painting, sculpture, or other creative outlets, provides a tangible way to bring shadow elements into consciousness and work with them constructively. These physical expressions help ground the integration process in real, embodied experience. True integration also involves bringing your shadow work into your daily life and relationships. This means being willing to show up authentically in your interactions, acknowledging your complexities and imperfections while remaining open to growth and connection. It means being honest about your needs, boundaries, and feelings, even when they don't align with others' expectations or societal norms. As you continue this integration process, you'll likely notice increased energy and vitality. When you're no longer expending energy suppressing or fighting against parts of yourself, that energy becomes available for creative expression, personal growth, and meaningful connection with others. You may find yourself making decisions more easily, feeling more confident in your choices, and experiencing a greater sense of inner peace. Integration isn't about reaching a final, perfect state of being. Instead, it's about developing a flexible, adaptive relationship with all aspects of yourself. This relationship allows you to navigate life's challenges with greater wisdom, resilience, and authenticity. As you continue to bring together your shadow aspects with your conscious self, you create a more complete and powerful presence in the world, one that can fully embrace both the light and shadow of human experience. How shadow work reveals your true self. Shadow work serves as a profound gateway to discovering your authentic self, acting as a mirror that reflects both your conscious and unconscious aspects. Through dedicated shadow work practice, you begin to peel away the layers of societal conditioning, familial expectations, and self-imposed limitations that have obscured your true nature. This process of self-discovery reveals not only the parts of yourself that you've hidden away, but also unveils your genuine potential and innate gifts. As you delve deeper into shadow work, you'll notice that the qualities you once rejected or denied in yourself start to surface with new meaning. These aspects, rather than being purely negative as you might have believed, often contain valuable strengths and abilities that have been distorted or suppressed. For instance, what you perceived as anger might actually be passion, and what you labeled as weakness could be sensitivity that enables deep empathy and connection with others. The journey of shadow integration leads to a more complete understanding of who you are. This understanding goes beyond the surface level persona you present to the world and encompasses the full spectrum of your being. Through this work, you begin to recognize that your true self isn't limited to the good or socially acceptable parts of your personality. Instead, it's a dynamic integration of all your aspects, including those that might seem contradictory or challenging. Your true self emerges when you acknowledge and accept both your light and dark aspects. This acceptance doesn't mean giving free rein to destructive behaviors, but rather understanding their origins and transforming their energy into constructive expressions. The process often reveals hidden talents and capabilities that were previously masked by fear or self-doubt. For example, someone who has always suppressed their creativity out of fear of judgment might discover an extraordinary artistic ability once they work through their shadows. Shadow work also helps you distinguish between your authentic desires and those imposed by external influences. As you examine your shadows, you'll begin to recognize which of your goals and aspirations truly resonate with your inner being and which ones you've adopted to please others or conform to societal expectations. This clarity enables you to make choices that align with your genuine self rather than following paths that others have chosen for you. The revelation of your true self through shadow work often brings unexpected gifts. You might discover that your perceived flaws are actually unique strengths that set you apart and contribute to your personal power. The aspects of yourself that you once tried to hide might become the very qualities that others find most inspiring or compelling about you. This transformation occurs because you're no longer fighting against yourself, but working with all parts of your psyche in harmony. As your true self emerges, relationships often transform as well. When you're authentic and integrated, you naturally attract connections that support and celebrate your whole being, rather than just the polished exterior. This authenticity creates space for deeper, more meaningful relationships based on genuine understanding and acceptance rather than superficial compatibility. The process of revealing your true self through shadow work requires patience and commitment. It's not about reaching a final destination, but rather engaging in an ongoing journey of self-discovery and integration. Each layer of shadow work brings you closer to your authentic nature, helping you embody more of your potential and live from a place of genuine self-expression. Your true self emerges not as a perfect, idealized version view, but as a complete and integrated being who acknowledges both strengths and weaknesses, light and shadow. This integration leads to a sense of wholeness and inner peace that comes from no longer having to hide or deny any part of yourself. Through shadow work, you learn to embrace all aspects of your being, allowing your authentic self to shine through in all its complexity and beauty. Bringing shadow work into daily life. Living with awareness of your shadow aspects requires dedication to incorporating shadow work principles into your everyday existence. The journey of shadow integration doesn't end with recognition and acceptance. It continues through conscious implementation in daily situations and interactions. The first step in bringing shadow work into daily life involves creating morning and evening rituals that honor both your conscious and unconscious aspects. Upon waking, take a few moments to check in with yourself, acknowledging any dreams, emotions, or thoughts that arose during sleep. These early morning moments often provide valuable insights into shadow material that's ready to be processed. Similarly, evening reflection allows you to review the day's events through the lens of shadow work, identifying triggers, patterns, and opportunities for growth. Throughout your day, practice mindful observation of your reactions to people and situations. When you feel a strong emotional response, particularly a negative one, pause to consider what aspect of your shadow might be activated. Rather than immediately reacting, create space to explore the root of your feelings. This might mean excusing yourself from a situation briefly or making a mental note to examine the trigger later during dedicated shadow work time. Interpersonal relationships provide rich opportunities for shadow work integration. When conflicts arise, view them as mirrors reflecting aspects of yourself that need attention. If someone's behavior particularly irritates you, consider what this reveals about your own disowned traits. Practice expressing these observations in your relationships when appropriate, using phrases like "I notice I'm feeling triggered by this situation" or "this interaction is bringing up something I need to examine within myself." Physical movement and body awareness can serve as powerful tools for shadow integration. During exercise, yoga, or simple stretching, notice areas of tension or resistance in your body. These physical manifestations often correspond to emotional or psychological blocks related to shadow material. Use movement as a way to release stored energy and create space for shadow aspects to emerge and be processed. Creative expression provides another avenue for daily shadow work, whether through art, music, writing, or other forms of creativity. Allow yourself to explore shadow themes without judgment. Keep art supplies readily available for moments when you need to process emotions visually, or maintain a small notebook for capturing shadow-related insights throughout the day. Working with dreams becomes more effective when integrated into daily life. Keep a dream journal by your bed and make recording dreams a regular morning practice. Throughout the day, notice connections between dream symbols and your waking experiences. This ongoing dialogue between conscious and unconscious material strengthens your ability to work with shadow aspects. Environmental awareness also plays a role in daily shadow work. Notice how different spaces and situations affect your emotional state. Create physical environments that support shadow integration by incorporating meaningful objects, colors, or arrangements that remind you to stay connected to your whole self. This might include setting up a dedicated space for meditation or keeping symbolic items on your desk at work. Regular check-ins throughout the day help maintain shadow awareness. Set gentle reminders on your phone or associate certain daily activities with shadow reflection. For example, use your lunch break as a time to review morning interactions or practice shadow awareness during your daily commute. Bringing shadow work into daily life also means accepting that some days will flow more easily than others. There will be times when shadow material feels overwhelming or when you'd rather avoid this deep inner work. Treat these moments with compassion, recognizing that resistance and avoidance are also part of the shadow integration process. Daily shadow work is not about constant analysis or self-criticism. Instead, it's about maintaining an open, curious attitude toward all aspects of your experience. By weaving shadow awareness into the fabric of daily life, you create a more authentic and integrated way of being in the world. This ongoing practice gradually transforms your relationship with yourself and others, leading to greater wholeness and personal truth. Working with recurring dreams and symbols. Dreams have long been recognized as powerful windows into our shadow self, offering glimpses of the unconscious material we've pushed away from our conscious awareness. In shadow work, recurring dreams and symbols serve as particularly significant messengers from our psyche, carrying important information about unresolved conflicts, suppressed emotions, and aspects of ourselves we've yet to acknowledge or integrate. When we encounter recurring dreams, they often represent persistent themes or issues in our lives that demand attention. These dreams typically appear when we've neglected important aspects of our psychological development or when we're avoiding confronting certain truths about ourselves. The repetitive nature of these dreams suggests that our unconscious mind is attempting to communicate something vital that we haven't yet fully understood or addressed. The symbols that appear in our dreams are deeply personal, though they may also carry collective or archetypal significance. A snake in your dream might represent transformation and renewal, but its specific meaning in your psyche could be influenced by your personal experiences, cultural background, and emotional associations. This is why it's essential to develop your own relationship with dream symbols rather than relying solely on generic dream dictionaries. Working with recurring dreams requires a dedicated practice of dream journaling and reflection. Upon waking, take time to record not just the dream's contents, but also the emotions, sensations, and immediate associations that arise. Pay particular attention to any symbols or themes that appear repeatedly across different dreams. These patterns often point to shadow aspects seeking integration. The process of working with dream symbols involves active imagination, a technique developed to bridge the conscious and unconscious minds. This practice involves taking a symbol or dream image and engaging with it in a waking state through meditation, artwork, or written dialogue. For example, if you frequently dream of being chased, you might sit quietly and imagine having a conversation with the pursuer, asking what it represents and why it keeps appearing in your dreams. Dreams often speak in paradoxes and metaphors, reflecting the complex nature of our shadow aspects. A recurring dream of being naked in public might reveal vulnerability around self-expression, while dreams of flying could indicate a desire for freedom from current limitations. The key is to approach these dreams with curiosity rather than judgment, understanding that even disturbing dream content carries valuable information about our psyche. Physical symptoms and body sensations that accompany recurring dreams are equally important to note. Our bodies often carry wisdom about our shadow aspects that our conscious minds haven't yet recognized. A recurring dream that consistently produces a particular physical response, such as a racing heart or tension in specific areas, may be pointing to where we hold shadow material in our physical form. As you work with recurring dreams and symbols, you may notice them evolving or transforming over time. This is often a sign of successful shadow integration. The threatening figure in your dreams might become less intimidating, or the scenario might play out differently as you develop a new relationship with the shadow aspects these dreams represent. These changes reflect your growing capacity to acknowledge and embrace previously rejected parts of yourself. Dream work in shadow integration is not about achieving perfect understanding or immediate resolution. Instead, it's about developing a ongoing dialogue with your unconscious mind and learning to trust the wisdom it shares through dreams and symbols. This process requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to sit with uncertainty as deeper meanings gradually reveal themselves. Through conscious engagement with recurring dreams and symbols, we create a bridge between our conscious and unconscious selves, facilitating the integration of shadow aspects and moving us closer to psychological wholeness. This work opens new pathways for self-discovery and personal growth, allowing us to access the rich resources of our complete psyche. Bringing light to your shadow. Shadow work is a profound journey of self-discovery that requires dedication, courage, and perseverance. As we near the completion of our exploration, it becomes essential to understand how to maintain and deepen our practice while continuing to grow. The integration of shadow aspects isn't a one-time achievement, but rather an ongoing process that evolves throughout our lives. When we begin to see results from our shadow work, it's natural to want to accelerate the process or push ourselves harder. However, true integration happens at its own pace, and forcing it can be counterproductive. Instead, focus on creating a sustainable practice that you can maintain over the long term. This might involve setting aside regular time for reflection, journaling, or meditation, but doing so in a way that feels natural and unforced. The key to successful shadow integration lies in finding balance between acknowledging our darker aspects and maintaining our light. Think of it as learning to dance with both aspects of yourself, neither rejecting the shadow nor becoming consumed by it. This dance requires practice, patience, and most importantly, self-compassion. Every part of you, including the shadow, serves a purpose in your psychological makeup. As you continue your shadow work journey, you'll likely notice that certain themes or patterns begin to emerge. These patterns often represent core wounds or unresolved issues that require ongoing attention. Rather than viewing this as a setback, consider it an opportunity for deeper healing and understanding. Each time you revisit these patterns, you have the chance to peel back another layer and gain new insights. One powerful way to maintain momentum in your shadow work is to create rituals or practices that honor both your light and shadow aspects. This might involve regular check-ins with yourself, creative expression through art or music, or physical practices like yoga or movement that help you stay connected to your body. The key is finding what resonates with you personally and making it a consistent part of your life. It's also important to recognize that shadow work isn't just about healing past wounds. It's about creating space for new growth and possibilities. As you integrate different aspects of your shadow, you'll likely find that you have more energy and creativity available to you. This newfound energy can be channeled into personal projects, relationships, or other areas of your life that matter to you. The process of integration also involves learning to trust your intuition more deeply. Your inner guidance system becomes stronger as you acknowledge and accept all parts of yourself. This enhanced intuition can help you navigate life's challenges with greater wisdom and clarity, making decisions that align with your authentic self rather than being driven by unconscious fears or desires. Shadow work isn't about achieving perfection or eliminating all negative aspects of yourself. Instead, it's about creating a more honest and complete relationship with who you are. This includes accepting that you will still have moments of difficulty or struggle, but now you have the tools and awareness to handle them more effectively. As you continue on this path, stay open to the possibility that your shadow work practice may need to evolve or change over time. What works for you now might need adjustment in the future, and that's perfectly normal. The key is remaining flexible and responsive to your own needs while maintaining your commitment to self-discovery and growth. Through consistent engagement with your shadow aspects, you create the foundation for lasting transformation and authentic self-expression. This ongoing process of integration leads to greater wholeness, allowing you to live more fully and freely in all aspects of your life. Your shadow work journey is unique to you, and as you continue to bring light to your shadow, you'll discover new depths of understanding and acceptance that enrich your experience of being human. Creating dynamic balance in your life. Shadow work is not just about uncovering and accepting our darker aspects. It's about creating a dynamic balance between all parts of ourselves. This balance is essential for maintaining psychological health and achieving personal growth. When we integrate our shadow aspects, we begin to experience life with greater wholeness and authenticity. The process of creating dynamic balance starts with understanding that our psyche naturally seeks equilibrium. Just as nature maintains balance through various cycles and systems, our psychological well-being depends on finding harmony between opposing forces within us. This includes the balance between our conscious and unconscious minds, between our light and shadow aspects, and between our various personality traits and tendencies. One key aspect of creating dynamic balance is learning to hold space for contradictions within ourselves. We might be both kind and cruel, generous and selfish, brave and fearful. Instead of trying to eliminate one side of these pairs, we need to acknowledge and accept both aspects as valid parts of our human experience. This acceptance doesn't mean we act on all our impulses, but rather that we understand and integrate them into our conscious awareness. Working with our shadow also involves recognizing that balance is not a static state, but a continuous process of adjustment and readjustment. Like a tightrope walker, we must constantly make small corrections to maintain our equilibrium. This might mean sometimes leaning into our shadow aspects when we've been too rigid in our good behavior, or consciously choosing to embody more positive traits when we've been indulging our darker tendencies. The practice of creating dynamic balance requires developing a strong observing ego, the part of us that can witness our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without becoming completely identified with them. This observer perspective allows us to make conscious choices about how we express different aspects of ourselves, rather than being driven by unconscious impulses or societal expectations. Physical practices can be particularly helpful in developing this sense of balance. Movement practices like yoga, tai chi, or dance can help us understand the principle of dynamic equilibrium in a bodily way. These practices teach us that balance is not about rigid control, but about fluid adaptation and response. This physical understanding can then be applied to our psychological work with the shadow. Another important aspect of creating dynamic balance is learning to work with energy. Our shadow aspects often contain powerful emotional and psychic energy that, when properly channeled, can fuel our creativity, passion, and personal growth. Rather than suppressing or battling against this energy, we can learn to direct it in constructive ways. This might involve expressing anger through artistic creation, channeling sexual energy into creative projects, or transforming competitive impulses into motivation for personal achievement. The process of integration also involves developing a more nuanced relationship with our moral compass. Rather than viewing things in black and white terms of good and bad, we learn to navigate the complex gray areas of human experience. This moral flexibility doesn't mean abandoning our values, but rather developing a more sophisticated understanding of human nature and the various contexts in which different behaviors might be appropriate or inappropriate. Creating dynamic balance through shadow work ultimately leads to a more authentic and empowered way of being. When we can acknowledge and work with all aspects of ourselves, we no longer need to maintain rigid defenses or project our unwanted qualities onto others. This integration allows us to respond to life's challenges with greater wisdom, creativity, and compassion. We become more whole, more real, and more capable of meaningful engagement with ourselves and others. The journey toward dynamic balance is ongoing, and there will always be new aspects of the shadow to discover and integrate. However, as we continue this work, we develop greater capacity for holding complexity, managing tension, and maintaining equilibrium in our lives. This balance becomes not just a goal to achieve, but a way of being that enriches every aspect of our existence. Advanced integration, the path to wholeness. The journey of shadow work culminates in the profound process of integration, where we learn to fully embrace and unite all aspects of ourselves into a cohesive whole. This chapter explores the deepest level of shadow work, where the transformative power of acceptance leads to genuine wholeness and authenticity. Integration begins with the understanding that our shadow aspects aren't separate from us, but are essential components of our complete being. When we reach this stage of shadow work, we move beyond merely acknowledging or working with our shadow. We begin to see how it enriches our life experience and contributes to our unique personality. This perspective shift allows us to appreciate the wisdom and strength that emerge from embracing our full selves. The integration process often manifests as a dance between conscious awareness and unconscious revelation. As we become more comfortable with our shadow aspects, we naturally begin to incorporate them into our daily lives in healthy ways. For instance, the anger we once suppressed might transform into passionate advocacy for causes we believe in, or our tendency toward isolation might evolve into a healthy appreciation for solitude and self-reflection. One of the most powerful aspects of integration is the dissolution of internal conflicts. When we stop fighting against parts of ourselves, we free up enormous amounts of psychological energy. This newly available energy can then be channeled into creative endeavors, personal growth, and meaningful relationships. The internal peace that comes from integration allows us to navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and wisdom. During integration, we often experience a profound shift in how we relate to ourselves and others. The masks we once wore begin to fall away naturally, replaced by authentic self-expression. This authenticity doesn't mean we become different people. Rather, we become more fully ourselves, embracing both our light and dark aspects with equal acceptance. The process of integration also involves recognizing the cyclical nature of shadow work. There isn't a final destination where all shadow work is complete. Instead, we develop a fluid relationship with our shadow aspects that continues to evolve throughout our lives. This ongoing dance becomes less about fixing ourselves and more about growing in self-awareness and understanding. As integration deepens, we often find ourselves naturally drawn to practices that support wholeness. This might include regular meditation, creative expression, movement practices, or time in nature. These activities become not just tools for shadow work, but expressions of our integrated self, helping us maintain connection with all aspects of our being. Integration also brings a profound shift in how we view our past experiences and current challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as obstacles to overcome, we begin to recognize them as opportunities for deeper understanding and growth. This perspective allows us to approach life's challenges with curiosity and openness, rather than resistance and fear. The ultimate gift of integration is the experience of true psychological freedom. When we no longer need to suppress or deny any part of ourselves, we can move through life with greater ease and authenticity. This freedom manifests as increased spontaneity, creativity, and joy in daily life, as well as deeper, more meaningful connections with others. Integration is not about achieving perfection, but about embracing our complete humanity. It's about creating space for all aspects of our experience, the light and the dark, the beautiful and the challenging, the known and the unknown. Through this embrace, we discover that wholeness has been our natural state all along, waiting to be recognized and lived fully. This advanced stage of shadow work brings us full circle, revealing that the path to wholeness is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to who we truly are. It's about gathering all the pieces of ourselves we've discovered along the way and allowing them to exist together in harmony, creating a rich tapestry of human experience that is uniquely and authentically our own.